says, I'm trying to wrap this thing up. Yes, I am. It's about 12:30. I plan on being out of here by 1. So he says, the hope of his calling. He calls you out with an expectation to direct you to where he wants you to go. But he does not go by sending you by yourself. He is leading. There are times when you didn't see your way, but you didn't have to see your way. All you have to know is that God is with me. For a good man's steps are ordered by the Lord. And so the next thing he deals with is the inheritance of the saints, which means God has only one thing in this world, and that is you and me. Everything else is insignificant to God. I am his private collection. I'm Escalata, if you please. Because what God has in this world is you and me. And all the devil wants to do is destroy what God has in the world. So I found out that if I'm still crying, God is not through yet. If I'm still hurt, God is not through yet. If I'm still broke, God is not through yet. If I'm still suffering, God is not through yet. Because he already told me that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. So now, this brings me to my point. He says now the exceeding greatness of his power to usward who believe. The expositors comments, and here is what they say. It says in these 3 clauses, Paul leads the readers on from the hope itself, which becomes theirs by virtue of them being called. Tell somebody, say, God called me. So he calls them to the splendor of the inheritance, which the hope points. Yes. And this again is that in God himself, which called me, and he makes the fulfillment of the hope in the possession of the inheritance certain. And I call it the limitless efficiency of God, which is his prerogative. How when God calls you according to his purpose, he begins to say things like, all things work together for good. Now anybody who can work everything out for good has to have a limitless efficiency, which means he doesn't mess with anything, that he doesn't miss anything that goes on in your life. Then that he doesn't use to bring about the result. That is why people can be on their way to a palace but end up in a pit or a prison, because the pit and the prison doesn't stop God from bringing you to the palace. In fact, oftentimes he uses the pit and the prison to get you to the palace. So what Paul is praying is, while you're in prison, don't pick up a prison mentality. While you're in the pit, don't pick up a pit mentality. But while you're in the prison, go through the prison with the palace mentality, that God is going to work it out all right. Yes, he is. Give your neighbor a high five and say, neighbors, take your limits off God. God is trying to take you to a new level. And I lift up the name of God for folk who take the limit off. I've had them in the box much too long, but God told me to tell you, no limits this year. Whatever God puts in your heart, tell the devil it shall be done. Shake somebody's hands and say, neighbors, because Sarah was just as dead as Abraham. But when you put 20 years on it, you got difficulty by two, but now you got impossibility by two, because Abraham is 100 and Sarah